Hi everyone, so today I'm going to be doing a really big book haul because I've kind of been using Big Bang as a coping mechanism during quarantine and lockdown, which is lovely. It's quite a long book haul, so grab your coffee or your tea. We have green tea here because I'm just so in love with green tea. It's great. So yeah, let's get right into it because it's going to be a long video. Okay, so we're starting off real positive with David Hume's On Suicide. So this is part of the Penguin Great Ideas series in which they publish different either short extracts or like shorter works of really famous authors, this one being David Hume. This is sort of an philosophical inquiry into the morality of taking one's life and sort of discussing different points of view, that being of the Stoic, Platonic point of view, and his own really. And so if that's something which you think is an interesting point of discussion, philosophically, then sure, pick this up. It's an interesting intro. It's quite good. David Hume. Also, just like as a quick side note, I know that during quarantine and lockdown, sometimes it can get quite hard, or just generally with feelings of loneliness after not seeing people for a long time. So please know that there's always services available if you are feeling down. I'm going to link some down below, and if in case no one told you today yet, you're beautiful and loved, and we're going to continue now. Okay, next, I am so excited for this. This is Michael Foucault's Discipline and Punish, The Birth of the Prison. So this is essentially this, it's this work in which it discusses what prisons were before and how they have developed into what we now know as being the modern prison system, and how kind of the purpose of putting people into prison has been changing from that being of type of this idea of wanting to rehabilitate and help into something which is just to punish people and individuals. So if that's something which sounds interesting to you, then definitely pick this up. Someone who is quite educated recommended this to me, and has pictures, which is great. But yeah, this really interesting book. If that's something that sounds interesting, you definitely pick it up. A great writer and really nice kind of discussion of over history, how prison systems have changed and how we've come to where we are today, and potentially what can we do to kind of rectify how the prison system is right now, and what do we really want from putting people into prison. And yeah, it's good. Okay, next we have this huge 600-page chunky work of philosophy, which is Soren Kierkegaard's Either or, A Fragment of Life. So this is a philosophical inquiry into the aesthetics of love and marriage, and kind of discourse on whether love can exist within marriage and an aesthetician's point of view of love. And so, I mean, part of it is just Kierkegaard going off about why Don Quixote is the best opera ever and why Mozart is like god tier. So that's part of it. But a large part of it is about this one individual who's only really known as the seducer, who's trying to seduce this girl that he sees and he really likes. And it kind of goes between, it's almost epistolary in terms of it being partially the letters which he sends to her, but in between these letters he kind of documents diary form of what's going on and how he's feeling and what he's experiencing. So that's it's an interesting format. And then the second part, we have this kind of defense of love, defense of marriage, by someone responding to these letters, diary entries from the first individual and kind of defending marriage and kind of putting forth their point of view on why marriage is actually important and why love can exist within marriage and why it's something which should be defended and why it's possibly something that's sacred. And so yeah, if you're interested in discourse on, you know, the aesthetics of love and marriage, pick this up. It's 600 pages. I will note that this is an abridged version, so this is the Penguin Black Spine editions. Originally, Kierkegaard's Either Or existed between two huge novels. You can buy them in their like full format, but this abridged version, it essentially it doesn't include certain stuff for like that only, for example, Danish contemporary society would know of, like specific operas and like places, which it's not included in here, but I don't think that takes away from the reading experience. And in the intro, the editor explains why it is abridged and why some parts were taken out, so that's overall good. Footnotes were great. Yeah, is it a bit outdated on perhaps its views on women and gender within society? Like perhaps, but I mean, I feel as though going into this understanding that this is what 18th century, like a society, going into it knowing that, I don't think that it necessarily hinders the reading experience. It doesn't, and I feel as though a modern reader can still, get the necessary philosophical discourse and philosophical inquiries reading this, and I don't think there's anything particularly problematic if you go into it understanding, contemporary Danish society. So yeah, Kierkegaard. This was really interesting to read. Yeah. Okay, next we have The House of the Spirits by Isabel Allende. So this is 500 pages of... The only thing that I really know about this is that it is magical realism. And someone very near and dear to me recommended me it, and so I picked it up, and I haven't read it yet, so I can't really tell you what it's about, but apparently it's very good. That's all I can say, really. It's a lot of people's favourite book, or, one of their favourites. It has a lot of critical acclaim. So yeah, House of the Spirits by Isabel Allende. I'm excited to get to it. Okay, next we have The Nun by Denis Diderot, and this was really quite good. This is about this young girl who is forced to join a nunnery because, well, she's kind of an outcast in her family, and when legitimately about to take her vows, she protests and says, no, I don't want to be a nun, and everyone's in shock and this whole shame brought upon the family. But then she, her mum ends up manipulating her into joining a convent, and she feels bad because of certain secrets within her family, which she takes the blame and responsibility for, even though she shouldn't really, but she does, and so she joins this other convent which takes her in which she experiences a lot of abuse, and it's really quite horrifying, and this is essentially a documentation of the type of abuse in which she experiences. This is fictional, but I believe it's adapted from non-fictional events, and it's really quite good. Yeah, and she ends up transferring to a different convent, but the type of, I don't know, I don't want to say abuse, but the type of manipulation that she experiences there is, also quite poor and quite bad, a lot of exploitation. So yeah, if you're interested in anything that I said remotely, pick this up. Not a lot of people I hear talk about it, but it's a really, really interesting read. So, The Nun by Denis Diderot. Okay, next we have, this was so good. I adored this. This is No Longer Human by Osamu Dazai. So this was just absolutely phenomenal as a read. It our protagonist doesn't really understand humans. He doesn't really understand them because he sees the hypocrisy in their everyday actions, and he doesn't understand what it is to be human, to feel human, because he simply doesn't relate to these people and these actions that they take and these sort of emotions that they feel on seemingly trivial things, or the responses that they have to certain situations. And it kind of goes through his life and these really big events happening in his life, and it's just this, it's so good. Our narrator is, I'd say, not nihilistic, but perhaps existentialist, probably definitely existentialist, and he does go, and so if you're interested in discussions on kind of humanity and what it is to be human, and it's quite dark, I'd say. A lot of talk on loneliness and solitude. It's written really beautifully. I really appreciated the writing. You can read it in one sitting. It's not that long, and I am so glad I read this. It stays with you. It's quite dark. It's lovely. It's comfort. It's dark, but it's comforting. So, I'd recommend this. Okay, next we have, I guess on somewhat similar lines, The Stranger by Albert Camus. This was, once again, absolutely amazing. One sitting read, it's really short. This is also, the thing is, I believe you should go into this blind. I don't believe providing a plot synopsis is by any means necessary, nor is it even useful to enhance any reading experience, because I went to it pretty much blind, and that's how I believe you should go into it. Our narrator is just very existentialist, and it kind of goes through his life and different events that happen, kind of similar to this. So if you liked either one of these, pick up the other, and if you haven't read either, pick up both, because they're both amazing. Literally, this is so good. I mean, the writing style is crazy. Like, Camus does this I'm not gonna say simplistic style of writing, but it's almost like, if anyone's read John Vowles, The Collector, wait, let me find it. If anyone's read The Collector by John Vowles, and got somewhat frustrated, as I did, with the kind of simple style of writing and lack of some literary techniques, it's like Vowles was trying to do what Camus did here. Like, I can't even explain, like, how it's so, like, Camus' literary merit really shines through in this novel, and just how amazing this is. It just, I feel everyone should read. This is such a quick, fast-paced read. You get sucked into the story and you can't put it down, because this protagonist is so, it's so great, and it's a novel, but in reality it's almost Dostoevsky-like, in which it's a philosophical, it's philosophy disguised as a novel. That's what it is. So it's great. Please pick this up. It's really easy to read, like absolutely easy to read, quick, fast-paced, and so good. So yeah, read Camus. Just read Camus. Okay, next we have Hotel Iris by Yoko Ogawa. I saw in one of the reviews of this that someone said, oh, this is like Lolita, and I thought, okay, let me pick it up. And so this is not really like Lolita. On a basic level, I guess it somewhat is. It's about this teenage girl who works at her mother's hotel, and one evening this older gentleman comes in, and she forms this fascination with him, and then she goes and essentially kind of stalks him around town. And then they sort of develop what is at first this acquaintanceship, but then develops into something which is really explicit and uncanny to read. It has the type of Lolita effect in which when you're reading it, you sort of feel as though, I shouldn't be reading this. This is wrong. I should not be reading this, but you still continue reading. I don't know. It's not Lolita level, in terms of, like, its greatness, but if you're interested in something which is... Oh, the ending's really tragic, which is great. Like, the ending is great. It's a really great ending. So yeah, so if you're interested in something which is short, one-sitting read, quite dark, and just very explicit, I will say, going into it, pick it up. Okay, next is something which I was so excited to get, and oh, I'm so glad I read this. So this is Kitchen by Banana Yoshimoto. This is my first Banana Yoshimoto, and whew, this is great. This, so Kitchen is about this student. She's in her early 20s, and throughout her life she's experienced an insane amount of loss, and the start of the novel, it starts off with her losing her grandmother. That's not a spoiler, it happens in legit, like, first page. And it kind of, this novel is just, it's this really nice exploration of grief and depression, but the type of everyday depression that is just kind of somber and lingers and just doesn't really go away. And it's not as, I don't know, it's a really, really fascinating and great exploration into these themes of grief and loneliness, and she develops this friendship with this other student who invites her in to live with him, and you kind of see the friendship develop, and it just tackles a lot of really, really important issues, and I think her style of writing really perfectly complements what this novel is about. There's also like a tiny novella at the end called Midnight Shadow, which I wasn't expecting, by the way. Like, I was reading this and I was thinking, okay, I'm on like page around like 100, I still have like 50 pages left, so I'm good. Like, I was getting really into it, and then I realized, oh, there's a novella at the end. Oh, excuse me? No. But the novella is really good. It's also tackling subjects of loss and grief. It's a bit magical realism-y, I guess. But it's great. This is great. This is, if you want something that talks about loss and grief, pick up this. I thought it was quite good. Okay, next we have this absolutely beautiful edition of Sartre's Existentialism and Humanism. This is also sometimes known as Existentialism is a Humanism. So this is an adaptation of one of his lectures that he gave. So this is only around 100 pages. And to be honest, I don't think it's beneficial really going into a synopsis about this, but because it's so short and the title says it all, it's Sartre's interpretation of why existentialism is a humanism. So if you're interested in like an intro into Sartre and kind of almost an intro into existentialism, maybe not an intro into existentialism, but kind of his point of view on where existentialism and humanism kind of interact with each other, if that's something that sounds interesting, pick this up. I'll try and leave this edition down below because it's quite beautiful and the other one is not. So if you're a sucker for aesthetics like me, you'll appreciate this. Okay, next is, we have A Clockwork Orange by Anthony Burgess. So this is the Penguin Modern Classics edition, and this is a novel about this teenager boy who's essentially in this dystopian world. He's in this gang and they commit these really quite horrendous crimes, and it's very graphic and explicit in terms of going into the crimes that they commit, but he gets put into rehabilitation and he undergoes this new form of psychiatric treatment, and once again, it's one of these books where it's a novel, but in reality it's just philosophy in disguise of a novel. So it kind of tackles these ideas of, you know, the idea of free will and making bad decisions and making bad choices, on whether we should allow people to make them, or is it morally justifiable to kind of condition people to be good. It's great. It's a really short read, and I think it's really quite important. It's quite an interesting dystopia, but yeah, Clockwork Orange by Anthony Burgess. Okay, next we have North and South by Elizabeth Gaskell. So this is the Penguin English Library edition, and this is essentially a novel in which it documents this young woman's sort of journey moving from the south of England to the north of England because her father changes his views on, I think, like the English church or something. But she kind of documents the difference in life in which she experiences in the south compared to the north. That's all I really know about it, because I kind of picked it up because it's Gaskell, and I haven't read any Gaskell, and this is very well known and, you know, highly loved by many people, so I thought I'd start off here reading North and South. I haven't read it yet, but I'm excited to get to it. And yeah. Next we have this absolutely beautiful book, which I'm not saying was a cover by, but it definitely was. This is Wessex Tales by Thomas Hardy. This is a kind of compilation of a bunch of his Wessex Tales. I've read some of these so far, and they're really short and easy to get through, and quite interesting reads. They're quite fast paced and just nice, quite light reads. You can kind of just get through. If you're in between, like if you just finished a novel and want to get to a new one, these are nice to read in that kind of time space. But yeah, I mean, this edition is gorgeous. And it's Thomas Hardy, so you know that the writing is going to be quite, you know, it's going to be at least quite good, and that the actual stories are going to be great too. So yeah, it's great. Next we have, okay, I was so excited to read this, and I'm so glad I did. We have The Discomfort of Evening by, these Dutch names are, okay, Marieke Lucas Rijneveld. That is probably really butchered, and I apologize for that, but this book, oh my days, this is shortlisted for the International Man Booker Prize 2020, and this novel is, it is quite dark and it is quite disturbing. The protagonist is a 12-year-old girl, and she's living in this countryside, and it kind of starts off with the death of one of her brothers, and it kind of documents how her life changes after that, but it's very, I can't give anything away about it, and I don't think there's much to give away. It's just, it's such a great read, as in, it's so disturbing in the sense that you don't want to put it down, but definitely, like, some scenes are quite disturbing. I heard some people say this is boring. This isn't boring. I don't know why anyone would think that this is boring, because genuinely this is, oh my days, this is a one to read if you're interested in quite a dark novel. The ending in this is, just, it is such an amazingly done ending, so quick and just shocking, and just stays with you. This book stays with you for a really, really long time. I definitely recommend picking it up if you're into like somewhat of a dark read. Go into it like not really knowing a synopsis. Really, you don't need a synopsis going into it. It's really easy to read. The one thing I will say is I thought that, I don't know, for the first 100 pages I was kind of somewhat annoyed, and I don't know if this is because of it being a translation, or maybe it's the author's writing style, but I was somewhat annoyed with how it kind of felt like it was simile after simile after simile, and that kind of frustrated me. But I got used to that style of writing, and so if that's something that you also find when you're starting to read this that's kind of frustrating, it's something that you'll get used to, and I think I don't know if there's less of that as the novel progresses or if I just got used to it, but definitely give this a go. Okay, next we have Love is a Dog from Hell by Charles Bukowski. This is a collection of his poetry from the years 1974 to 1977, and this is crass, and it's kind of dark, and it's witty, and it's funny, but it's disgusting and it's crass, and it's Bukowski. It's just this is like prime Bukowski. His poetry is great. I mean, there's some real gems in here that I absolutely adored. It made me laugh a lot of times. I don't know, it's great. It's Bukowski. I mean, that's all you really need to know going into it. If you want to read some really funny but crass and kind of dark and witty and Bukowski poetry, I'm sure pick this up. This edition's really beautiful too. Once again, I'll try to link it down below. But yeah, I read all of these, all of the poems in here, and I don't regret it one bit. It was a great reading experience. Okay, next we have this absolutely gorgeous edition of Nausea by Sartre. So this is, I believe, Sartre's only fictional novel, or one of his only, and this is so great. This is about this man, and it's once again, it's one of those, it's philosophy disguised as a novel. This tackles ideas of loneliness and solitude and kind of grief and just essentially this nausea that comes from experiencing all of these things. So if you're interested in this type of discussion, I feel as though like half of this book haul is, if you're interested in grief and and solitude and loneliness, then read these books. But genuinely, I mean, Sartre writing fiction it's great. It's a really short read, but it reminded me so much of Dostoevsky, like in the sense that there's so much philosophy in it disguised as this novel, which makes it probably one of like the most accessible things that you can read if you want to read philosophy and you want a novel to prompt you to think, but you don't necessarily want to read a 600-page, inquiry into these subjects, which can be quite daunting and potentially quite difficult to read. Something like this, it's a really great intro into philosophy and into Sartre, really. I mean, sure, like, I wouldn't say it's bad to start off with this. I mean, go ahead. It's great. And this edition is beautiful, like, absolutely beautiful edition. I saw it, I just knew that I had to have it. I found it at Daunt Books here in London. They have a couple locations around London. I'll try and link this down below to this edition because it's stunning. Next we have this book called Fate and Predestination. This is a book, as it says, on fate and predestination, so if that's something that you're interested in. This is a really nice short introduction. It tackles different topics and ideas of responsibility, and written by Sheikh al-Shahrawari, and it's a really great intro. This is published by, once again, this specific bookstore in London, so if you're looking for this edition in particular, I'll try to link it down below. But yeah, really nice intro if it's something you're interested in. Okay, next, I was reading, okay, let me find it. I was reading Ariel by Sylvia Plath. By the way, this edition is gorgeous. So I was reading this, which is a kind of a collection of Ariel and some of her other poetry. And I think I read around 10 pages of this when I decided I need to own all of Sylvia Plath's poetry. I mean, I need to own all of it. There's absolutely no way that I can't own all of it. So I went out and I ordered it, and I don't regret my choice at all. If you liked The Bell Jar, you aren't ready for her poetry, because I really enjoyed The Bell Jar. Like, I thought it was really great. Like, The Bell Jar is really great, but this, Sylvia Plath's poetry is a whole new level. It is just, it's everything that you love about The Bell Jar, just amplified to a whole new level, and it's beautiful. Like, I haven't read poetry this good in a long time. This deep and meaningful and just, some of these are really dark and some of them are really touching, and it grabs you and it just sucks you in, and it's Sylvia Plath. So yeah, definitely pick this up if you're interested in some really great poetry. And if you love The Bell Jar, like I said, please don't skip on her poetry. I mean, her poetry is just... Okay, next we have Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy. What can I say? This is Anna Karenina. It's the Anna Karenina. So if you're not familiar with the plot, it's essentially about this woman who's married with child with this Russian politician who has a lot of notoriety because he's viewed as saving Russia and being this really prominent political figure, and she's married with him, but she's not really in love with him anymore, and so she has this affair with this other individual who she meets and she just falls for, and it ends up ending quite dark and tragically for Anna Karenina. I'm not going to spoil what happens, but I mean, this is the Anna Karenina. I feel like this is such an essential read just to have. I know it's like 950 pages, but genuinely it's something which you can just get through quite easily. The writing isn't difficult. Oh, and this edition is the vintage Russian classics edition. Absolutely gorgeous edition. Would recommend 100%. The pages open really nicely and the spine never bends, so if you're someone who's afraid of the spines bending on big books, this is something which you definitely don't have to worry about this edition. It's Anna Karenina. Just read it. I don't know what else I can say. It's the Anna Karenina. Dark love story, tragic ending, just the epitome of Russian literature, really. Okay, next we have 2 folio books to end this book haul. So the first one is this really gorgeous edition. It's titled The Life of Muhammad. So this is about the Prophet, and kind of, it sort of is a nice, really short, I wouldn't say intro, but a short, somewhat biography of his life, and it tackles kind of like the most important, some of the most important events and the significance of them. I mean, this edition is absolutely gorgeous, and it's quite short, so if you're looking for something which isn't too long, trying to like kind of get more insight and more details into his life, I definitely recommend picking this up. I mean, once again, it's a gorgeous edition, and the introduction in this was quite good. Just generally speaking, this as an edition it's solid. There are better biographies out there and, you know, books on this, but as an intro, I thought this was quite good. So yeah, and the last book is another folio, and this was somewhat of a cover by, but it's also just because it's Voltaire, and it's the I almost said the Calais affair, but I don't want to be controversial. I'm joking. It's the Calas affair by Voltaire, and this edition is just stunning. I mean, absolutely gorgeous. Beautiful. Just these burgundy and pages. I find it quite hard to describe what this is about. Because mainly the intro in this does such a good job of explaining it. This is essentially Voltaire's defense of the Sartre family, who one of the sons of the family commits suicide and the father is wrongly trialed as committing murder of the son, and so he's publicly executed, and the rest of the family is kind of put into jail and are said to be trialed later. And Voltaire kind of sees this injustice which is done insofar as Voltaire kind of sees an injustice which is done insofar as this family is being wrongly trialed for a crime which they didn't commit. And so this is his letters and his sort of writings on this family and on really important issues tackling, you know, French society and French jury within this time period, but also talking about what happens when you have this type of intersection with the jury system with faith and Christianity, and sort of what happens when you have this divide between Protestants and Catholics and how that affects justice being served. And I'm pretty sure I made it sound really boring, but this was actually really interesting to read. It's Voltaire, so you know it's going to be great. I mean, it's quite philosophical too. Once again, it tackles a lot of things. It talks about religion in a lot of senses and kind of the importance of it, but also like the harm that comes from the misinterpretation of faith and religion. So yeah, it was a really quick, interesting read, and I'm really glad that I read it. So yeah, so that concludes my book haul. I'm glad you watched. I'm not sure if anyone is still watching up to this point because it's been quite a long video, and if you enjoyed, then thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.